What up, Brandon Novak here, and you are tuned in to the Dave and Creech Show.
This is the Dave and Creech Show, the only podcast where podcaster CJ Creech and actor Dave Sheridan come together to talk all things entertainment with your favorite entertainers. Want to ask our guests a question? Tweet them to @DaveSheridan or @CJCNOV88, and they may be asked to our guests live on the show. We do have to ask you stay seated during the podcast because this ride may get a little bit hilarious. Now here's your hosts, Dave and Creech.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 49 of the Dave and Creech Show. I am Creech. We have Dave Sheridan here as well. We've got a pretty fantastic episode. It's a longer episode, and it's one hell of an interview. Is pretty much what the entire episode is.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Buckle up, people. This is a different type of show because it's not a totally fluffy, fun episode. We're going to be talking with Brandon Novak, and we're going to get in. You might know him from Jackass and CKY, and he's had quite a storied young life. I think he's only about 38, 37, 39, somewhere in there. But the guy was on heroin at age 17, and he's got two books, one that's being reissued. What's that book called?
It's called Dreamseller, yeah.
Dreamseller. And then he's got another book coming out, working on a graphic novel, and all of this stuff really sort of is a biopic. Not a biopic. What's it called? Autobiography?
Autobiography, yeah.
Yeah, it's autobiographical of his adventures and his misadventures and his true life. And we're going to talk in some detail on all that, but also get to know him as a person and where he's going moving forward. I look forward to hearing from him. Let's get him on the line.
All right, guys, I am here with actor, skateboarder, Brandon Novak. And first off,
what up, man? How are you?
I'm pretty awesome, actually, and I do want to thank you for coming on the Dave and Creech Show.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you wanting me to be on and take part of this deal.
Oh, yeah. We have met before a long time ago.
Yeah, I saw that picture. I have no recollection of that. As you know, I'm sure a lot of people know, my life has kind of been a blur to me for the last, better part of 15 years. So I was there physically, but mentally I had checked out quite some time ago.
That was during a Fuckface Unstoppable concert. Right after that, you did the Coming in the Air Tonight, and you were a sight to be seen.
Yeah, that performance usually entails me being naked with a bottle of wine and at the time drugged out of my fucking mind.
Yes, it definitely seemed that way, but it was still very entertaining. But obviously now we're 3 years removed from that. Literally, it was 3 years ago in March. So now you're completely sober.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I'm coming up on 2 years sober in May. So I guess I used for a year after that, and then finally decided to sort myself out.
Thankfully, you have obviously the crazy stories to tell, which we'll go over quite a few of those. But also, thankfully, you made it out alive, and now you're able to help all the other people suffering from various addictions through your work with Banyan.
I work with the treatment center called Banyan Treatment Center, and we have 3 locations in Chicago, Boston, and Pompano Beach, Florida. And that I think in itself is the strangest twist of fate out of the whole deal, because now, for example, I was going to go down and see my mother tomorrow in Baltimore. She just had a hernia surgery, and she's recuperating. But I just got a phone call from a girl who needs help, and A, she's strung out on heroin. B, she chooses to call me, and C, I'm personally flying her down to treatment tomorrow morning. You know what I mean? So like, I didn't have that in my future plans back when I saw you.
Yes, but hey, it's crazy how life works.
It is, you know, and that's the cool thing, man. Like 99.9% of the people that call me and ask for help, they're like, Novak, if you can get clean, there's no reason why I can't. Can you help me? Because they've watched my head-on collision with heroin, wine, cocaine, drugs and alcohol in any form, in the press, the radio, the films, the tabloids, the books, and now they're like seeing the rebirth of me actually living a happy, joyous, free life, clean and sober. And so there's like some substance there. It's different than a 50-year-old professor reading out of a textbook, giving a bunch of theories or hypotheses of what may or may not happen if one chooses to use drugs, you know? So they can relate to me. And I get it because I was a strung-out junkie for 21 years. So I'm really good at playing devil's advocate. There's not much I haven't seen, done, or been through. So, like, who else better than me to, like, help that person that's deemed unhelpable or unfixable, such as I was? You know, my mother had bought me a plot. People had taken life insurance policies out on me. I was on life support for 7 days. You know, I was a bad bet to get sober. No one was betting on me to get sober, including myself. So, like, if I can overcome it, that's what makes me the happiest now, is helping that man or woman that is deemed unhelpable or unfixable, such as I was.
It's really awesome, if I may say so myself. It's awesome to reach out. I remember, in you know, preparing for this interview, I started reading. I got about halfway through at this point, but I've been reading Dreamseller, you know, recounting going into these the rehabs and seeing the people that you know you were talking to, like the lady who admitted you, I believe, one of the first times in the book, and how, you know, she gave you the story of how she came to be there and how she was working there. Now, in some essence, you've now moved on from like she did. You know, you went from the junkie and then the addiction to now using your life stories to teach others.
Yeah, it's wild, man. You know, I was a former professional skateboarder. I was in the movies Jackass, which broke box office records. I'm a New York Times best-selling author. And on the flip side of that, when I walked into treatment this time, at 35 years old, my worldly possessions, everything that I owned, consisted of 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, and a stick of deodorant. And when I walked into this last treatment center, I had been to it 4 previous times, and my counselor had saw me, the same woman I had 4 previous times. She said, Mr. Novak, you're back. I said, yeah. She said, if you play your cards right, today can be the best day of your life. And I looked at her. I said, Christina, do you need a urinalysis? Are you high? You know who I am. You know what I'm capable of. You know what I've done in my past. There's no way today will ever be the best day in my life. And what happens was she saw in me what I did not see in myself. And now where I'm at 2 years later, looking back on that day is my most proudest achievement out of anything in the world that I've ever achieved, was entering detox that day in such a beat-up state of despair.
That is definitely awesome. And like you said, 4 times. That's you know, most people, I mean, I've known some people who were addicted. I was telling you previously, I'd had a friend that had passed away from a heroin overdose. You know, 4 times, it seems like, you know, okay, maybe it may or may not work at that point because you keep going back, but you stuck with it. You stuck to it.
Yeah.
And
that was just 4 times in that specific treatment center. I have been in 13 inpatient treatment centers. I've lost count of outpatients and detoxes. I've been medevaced to 4 different hospitals in 4 different states from 4 different overdoses. You know what I mean? I've lost count of how many times I've overdosed and had to be brought back with Narcan. Like, statistically speaking, I should be dead. And the fact that I'm not is nothing shy of miraculous. So, like, if the thing is that no one ever turned their back on me when I was trying to get help, meaning treatment centers, meetings, people in the program. They were always there, and they kept answering, and they kept picking me up, and they kept taking me to meetings, and they kept taking me to treatment. And they never they believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. So now, like, how fucking dare I finally get sober and not do that for the next person like they had done for me for years.
At one point, I believe, I don't know if it's in the book, but I know I was reading about it as well. At one point, obviously, with addiction, you hurt those closest to you.
Yeah.
And as you had mentioned in the book, it was, you'd always go to the people that you were closest to for your next fix, to try to get money, whatever it may be. But, for the longest time, your family was hurting the most, but now they've, like you mentioned, you've been there for your mom and everything, and your family's come back together now that you're clean and sober. How is that to have that family back in there and to not have to kind of be in some ways, like you mentioned in the book, ashamed and trying to hide the truth now that you are sober?
Yeah, it's like they had to shun me, for lack of better words, because if they told me they loved me, I equated that to $10 or one more bag of heroin, because, like, I was just so far disconnected from reality. And at the end of my run this time, what happened was, I'm living back in my mother's house. I'm 35 years old. I'm living in a bedroom upstairs at her house. I'm leaving the house once a day to go buy $180 worth of heroin and cocaine. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm going to die if I stay here. So Bam calls me up, my best friend in the world, the guy that's physically paid. He's paid out of pocket 4 different times for me to go to treatment. He called me. He said, Novak, we're going to Australia to do a month-and-a-half-long tour of the Gold Coast. If you can just drink wine, you'll do great. Most people would say, wow, that's a great opportunity, a month-and-a-half-long tour of the Gold Coast, and you get paid really fine. That's great. To me, I was fucking furious because I had been to Australia before, and the time it takes to fly there is like 20 hours, and I bought enough for the first tour, and by the time I landed, I was completely out of heroin, and I didn't even feel high, and I couldn't score any heroin in Australia. So I immediately resented the idea of going to Australia again, but I had no other options. I had wore my welcome out everywhere else. So I said, all right, let's do it. So I jump on a train, I get up to Bam's house, and before I get to Bam's house, I stop in the city of Philadelphia, and I buy a whole bunch of heroin. I get to his house, and he said, come upstairs, I want to show you some footage I'm editing. And when I get upstairs, I go to pull my cigarettes out, and all my heroin falls out of my pocket. And he said, you're not going on tour, and you're not staying in my house. Get the fuck out. Once again, most people were like, oh, that's such a horrible thing. To me at the time, it was like I just hit the mega millions, because after all, I showed up. I kept my obligation. I'm here for the tour. You're the one that doesn't want me on the tour now. It's your loss. And number 2, I can go back to Baltimore, and I can shoot heroin like I like. So I go back to my mother's house, and I knock on the door, and I said, Mom, congratulations, the tour's canceled. And she looks at me, and she said, Brandon, no, it's not. They've called and told me everything. And with that, my brother, who is an attorney in the White House, he does pensions and benefits in the White House, he came down that day that I left, and they went up into the bedroom and inspected the room that I left once a day for 3 months, and it looked like a murder scene. There was blood on the ceilings, there was blood on the walls, there was needles, there was cookers, there was bags, and they said to me, they said, Brandon, we will no longer love you to death. You cannot stay here. And when they said that, a police officer came around the corner, and he served me with a restraining order. So my family won't let me come there. My friends, Bam and everyone, literally left the country. I have nowhere to go, and I go to an abandoned house, a shooting gallery in Baltimore City, and I'm shooting up, and this woman messages me on social media, and she said, Brandon, I read your book. It saved my life. What do you say about an all-exclusive paid trip to Fort Lauderdale? And I said, great. I need some dope, some coke, some Xanax, and some wine. And she said, no problem. And that kind of struck me, because I said, okay, my book saved your life, but you're going to give me substances that kill mine. Okay, that's weird. And then she says, Then I do a little bit more research, and I find out she lives in a hotel. That's not a good sign either. And then I realize that she's like a lady of the night or a dancer, which I have no problem with because I've seen me become both of those things where I need $10. But here's where the problem lies. She has 2 requirements that I must fulfill. When I get there, she wants to party and she wants to fuck. And when I shoot heroin, I sleep. So I knew I was going to wear my welcome out real quick, and I didn't want to do that, but I had no other choice. So I get to the airport and I get in line. And 2 things I've learned in my career is I never win an argument with the judge or a TSA airport security agent. So I get up line, and they said, Mr. Novak, are you under the influence of anything? I said, no. They said, we believe you are. You will not fly for 72 hours. And what happened was God dressed up in the form of a TSA security airport agent and did for me what I could not do for myself. So I got out of line. I called my sponsor, which is in Philadelphia, and I explained the situation to him. And I said, look, I'm homeless in Baltimore, Washington International Airport, and I want to kill myself. And he said, no, you're going to get on a train. Some fellows from the program will pick you up. We'll take you to see your PO tomorrow morning, and God willing, they'll put you back into treatment. And that's kind of what was my re-entry back into this last time.
It sounds like there was definitely quite a few things, quite a few puzzle pieces that were moving around. Definitely it was a sign from above that, not to get on there.
Yeah. I mean, I did not want to board that flight because, like, I just knew it was going to end bad, but I didn't have anything else, I had worn out all my welcomes. No one wanted to deal with me anymore. So, I was just kind of a slave to the drug, and I was going to do it. But like I said, kind of my higher power intervened, and that those sequence of events were like so godsend. They were the best things that could have ever happened to me. But at the time, I did not see that. I was just lost. And
we're gonna go back a little bit. Actually, kind of fits with speaking of the plane. I know, originally as a kid, you were one of the hot upcoming skateboarders. You were discovered by Bucky Lasik, correct?
Yes.
And you got to travel quite a bit with him extensively, and learning under him, which you were a fan of, which is always very cool to do.
Absolutely.
At some point, you got approached to do some illegal activities that involved a plane, which is weird how both the catalyst for you getting into basically everything that led to the drugs, also the plane helped end your drug use. So how did that go about for those that don't know on how you originally got into the illegal activities?
Well, at 15, 16 years old, I was traveling the world as a skateboarder. I was in and out of airports. I was the first skateboarder to ever be endorsed by Gatorade. I was doing all these things at such a young age, but at that time, around 16, I got wrapped up with drugs, and I was selling a lot of weed for a fella out of Baltimore, and he realized, he knew who I was prior to me meeting him. He knew that I traveled a lot. So as any good drug dealer is, he saw an opportunity business-wise, and he jumped on it. A real entrepreneur, for lack of better words. And he said, look, Novak, no one would ever suspect you of traveling through the airport. You're young, you're little, you're a blonde-haired, blue-eyed skater kid. You look like you could do no wrong. How would you feel about flying out to California and meeting my connection and start transporting money back and forth from different states? And I was like, great. I was getting paid really well. It was a fairly easy task, and I was under the radar per se. So I would fly out to California, and I would the first meet, I went to a hotel, and I'm in my room, and this young Mexican kid comes in, and he said, and first he frisks me, and he said, okay, come on. He could speak English, and he takes me to a room, and he blindfolds me, and he takes me to a room, and then when I get into this room, they take the blindfold off, and there's like a 70 to 85-year-old Mexican woman that doesn't speak a lick of English, and her nephew, which is the guy who's the translator for this deal, is the only one that speaks English. So, we're talking back and forth, and the next thing I know, they're stripping my clothes off, and they're taping bundles of money to my body, you know, and it was a very terrifying experience the first time. There was guns, there were other, you know, Mexican gang members in the room. I didn't know what I got myself into. I kind of, my mouth wrote a check that my ass wasn't sure if it could cash or not. And so I loaded up with, I don't know, at the first meet, probably 400 grand. And they taped to my body, and then I flew right back to Baltimore and transported the money back, you know, and that was kind of my catalyst into the world of narcotics trade.
And it definitely only got crazier from there, as, you know, anybody who wants to pick up your book, Dreamseller, can do that. And there's plenty of horrifying stories. There's quite a few of them. I'm only about 50 to 75% done, and my jaw has dropped multiple times. With everything.
That's the thing. Like they fact checked it. They you know, because a lot of the stuff sounds like it could be made up, but you know, it's all there in black and white. There's police records, there's hospital records, there's accounts from witnesses, reliable sources that vouch for this. It's the real deal. My next book, Dreamseller, so that's the first book, Dreamseller. On March 27th, you can pre-order it on Amazon. They're re-releasing the first book, Dreamseller, with a new cover, 2 bonus chapters, and a new ending, which is really good because the book, you don't know yet, but it ends kind of in a question mark. You're not really sure what happened to me. And so essentially it kind of left the readers leaving the book with more questions than answers. So this new version that comes out March 27th, it answers those questions, but yet still leaves it vague enough because I have 2 more books coming out after that. So it'll be a trilogy set, but it's still vague enough to where the other 2 books are necessary.
You know, any of our listeners haven't checked it out, I would definitely, I'm gonna definitely have to pick up the new one too. I mean, like I said, I haven't finished reading it, but I know, you know, the book is a must read. It's really hard to put down, and definitely would recommend it to anybody out there wanting to, even if they're not struggling with addiction. I mean, it's just you know, it's one hell of a story, and like you said, it's all true.
And that's the thing, like you said, even if they're not struggling with addiction, these days, man, what I'm coming to find out working on the front lines of addiction is that addiction doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter if you come from Yale or jail, the White House or the outhouse. The results are all the same, and everybody gets a turn, depending on how you look at it. And my perception of what a junkie used to be was the guy under the bridge with a needle in his arm, a brown paper bag, shaking a cup for some change. Right? That's my perception of a junkie. And 2 months ago, I get a phone call from a fella, 20-year-old fella out of Oklahoma, and he said, once again, Novak, if you're clean, there's no reason why I can't. Can you help me? I say, absolutely. I said, look, meet me in Florida, and I'll take you to a treatment center. He said, okay, I'm going to get my father to charter a private jet. And I'm thinking the kid's just full of shit. I'm like, look, just get on a flight, and I'll meet you in Florida. Lo and behold, the kid gets his father to charter a private jet. He calls me when he gets to Fort Lauderdale, and he said, look, I'm at the Ritz-Carlton on the 17th floor in the penthouse suite. I go to the Ritz-Carlton, I go to the 17th floor of the penthouse suite, and he literally is the best penthouse suite the penthouse suite you could find. His balcony is the roof of the Ritz-Carlton. A 19-year-old kid shooting dope and coke with a Rolex on his arm, and a little fraternity boy, you know, with a button-up polo and some khaki shorts. And that wasn't what my perception of a junkie was, you know. But right now, it's not an epidemic; it's a pandemic, and people are getting affected, man. It's not just what I thought was the homeless guy under the bridge these days.
Exactly. Plus, I mean, being a heroin addict, you mentioned quite a few of the signs that you were just, you know, maybe not purposely showing, but, you know, symptoms of the addiction that you were going through. And maybe even if somebody's reading that, they could maybe pick up those same signs in somebody else and help somebody else get help before it's too late for them as well.
Absolutely. Because, to tell you the truth, I do a lot of public speaking engagements. I go into colleges, high schools, rallies, and I tell my story, kind of a cautionary tale, if you will. And one of the things I always elaborate on was like when I was at my first party in high school, and the alcohol was in abundance. The women were really pretty, and all of a sudden there was some cocaine put out on that table, and the pretty girl that I always liked handed me the straw. I never did cocaine, didn't want to do cocaine, but when she handed me that straw, I liked her. She was pretty, and I didn't want her to think I was a fucking nerd. So I did it, right, because I was scared of how she would look at me. She didn't tell me when I did that first line that, like, with that line, I will give away my career, I will give away my hopes, my dreams, my ambitions. I will be homeless one day. I will be eating out of trash cans. I will be sleeping in abandoned houses, and I'll be selling my body on the corner of the streets of Baltimore City for $40, right? If she would have told me that, maybe I might not have did that line of cocaine. You know what I mean?
For sure. And also, one of the stories from the book that was really shocking to me was when you got thrown out of the moving car while your mother's in the front yard gardening.
Absolutely. That was another one of my great ideas, to rip off a Jamaican drug dealer for 10 pounds of marijuana.
I had to stop reading for a second. I was like, oh my God, it's going to get so much worse. And it did. It got a lot worse.
Well, thank you. Speaking of that book, so you see, when I wrote that book, I really tried to make the reader believe they were in my shoes. So if I was talking about you, I would write 5 pages of description of how you sat, how you talked, how your hair leaned, how you dressed, your mannerisms before I even said your name, and what your importance to the story was until I brought it in, right? So I wanted to make the book kind of come along as 3D as possible. I'm saying all that to say that we have a graphic novel coming out that runs in parallel to the book to really, we're breaking the mold. We're really we're stepping into uncharted territories and doing something that no one's ever done, which is make a graphic novel about addiction and my story and stuff like that, which is going to be a really exciting thing.
Yo, it's Dave Sheridan calling. How are you?
How are you, brother?
I'm doing well. I'm sorry I'm late. I had a lot of stuff going on.
No worries, man. No worries.
I was working, and then I forgot, and I gave my son the phone to play. He was playing Buck Hunter something, 28, whatever. I don't know which one he was playing. The preacher was supposed to remind me, and he did remind us, but my son didn't tell me I was getting text. He's playing the fucking buck hunting game on my phone, and I'm sitting there eating. And then next thing I know, I'm like, oh, shit. Fucking podcast call. So
sounds like you have a pretty bad assistant on your hands.
Yeah, my son. So I'm going to beat fucking shit out of him, man. I'm going to beat the shit out of my son. I'm going to say, this is for Brandon Novak, motherfucker. How fucking dare you? How much did I miss? I came in on a graphic novel.
Doing a graphic novel that parallels my first book, kind of bringing people, the readers, into my world, literally, by sight, and seeing the places I end up, the positions I ended up in, the gnarly things that I did to get one more, and all that good stuff.
So mostly it's about your drug addictions and stuff then, right? Like that's a big part of that. What's it called? Dream something? What's it called?
The book's called Dreamseller. The graphic novels are going to be called The Chronicles of Brandon Novak.
Got it. So the graphic novels can really go much, they're going to go a little bit more all over the place in terms of, they're going to fill in the gaps, right?
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, I get what you're saying, because now you'll be able to see that instantly, and now you can just be right into the action of the characters and stuff.
Exactly. So we're really excited. We're breaking the mold to where we're kind of doing the first graphic novel that pertains to addiction.
That's true. Other than Iron Man, Tony Stark, he was an alcoholic. So.
Oh, was he?
Yes. Oh yeah, man.
Well, that makes me interested in it.
Yeah, they kind of cover that up a lot in the movies, but the big thing of that in the 70s was he was a raging alcoholic, but he was a superhero, you know, so.
That's great. See, that's the thing with me, man. I'm so sick and twisted. The only books I like to read are about, like, musicians, they're autobiographies about strung-out junkies that are brilliant in their own right. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that comes with what you're, you know, part of what you've dealt with, and obviously you know a ton of people just from relationships and also the fact that, you know, your world, what you're into skating and rock music and shit, that people that are drawn to that side are artists, and then therefore there's that addiction level that is also opened up. So, like, you know how, like, it's like everyone thinks the cliche that, you know, rock stars are hooked on drugs and they party and stuff, but I think it goes hand to hand to what happens with an artist. To have a certain mindset as an artist automatically puts you into being sort of like high profile for being an addictive person. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and you're right. That is the persona that's perceived, I think, by most general public. But the times are changing, man. 5-6 months ago, I found myself out in L.A. hanging out at a lobby bar with Nikki Sixx, Steve-O, and Kat Von D talking about recovery for like 2 hours. And I'm like, this isn't, you know, never in my wildest dreams I think I'd be sitting down having dinner with a guy from Motley Crue talking about recovery and being sober, you know? Like, it's kind of like that's like what the cool kids are doing these days is getting sober.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. That would be good, you know. And but the Motley Crue one is more like, that's almost like, it's not so much recovery, it's survival at that point. You know what I mean? He survived.
Yeah.
It's like,
it absolutely
is. You know, you guys dance with some dark Mr. Brownstone there, you know what I mean? So
one of the best ever. I remember I used to go out to the strung out dive bar that opened at 6 a.m. and after a long night of doing blow and stuff, we would go there, and it was just a dark, dingy dive bar in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and I would go to the jukebox and I would play Mr. Brownstone over and over and over.
When you got clean from the heroin, though, and then, you know, you had other issues with pills and the fucking alcohol and stuff, I'm sure, but, like, with the pills, like, did you get into that Oxycottin shit and that did that ever get you back into heroin or anything like that?
Oddly enough, you know how you hear most people, their progression is like they get into Oxycontin and stuff and then they get into heroin. I did it backwards. So I was on the heroin kick for years, and then Bam brought me up to Westchester. I kind of salvaged my skateboarding career momentarily. I got into the Viva La Bam shows, and then I made it on the Jackass. And I wasn't doing heroin. And then one day I break both my ankles filming Jackass, and I go to the hospital, and they load me up with Oxycontin. And then I got hooked on that. So it was like totally backwards.
I'm going to let you know that's kind of a lawsuit territory, because if you were already a previous heroin user, they shouldn't have even given you that stuff. You know what I mean?
And I share about that when I go speak at college, because I travel around the nation. I tell my story in colleges and whatnot of a cautionary tale. And one of the things is, like, I would break my bones filming, and I would go to the hospitals, and the doctors would see this movie star guy that's on the big screen, and they would think this guy can't be a junkie. Therefore, they were very generous with the script pad. And little they know, like, I was a junkie to the core.
Right. I think the drug companies, the drug companies are evil. They're insidious, evil companies, and I own a lot of their stocks, which is, you know, it's
kind of like it's like one of the necessary evils almost in that world, which I get. But yeah, you're right. Yeah. I think they're worse than the guys on the corner selling crack and dope. You know?
Yeah, they know it's like a legal crack and dope, and they just want to deal in the legal side of it, of like, we can make money on this. So how do we make something just as addictive or that can be broken up? And I don't know how you all the different versions of Oxycontin that you can do, but I know there's different ways of progressing with that pill, right? So
and then, you know what's even crazier? I was just watching TV last night, and they're covering both ends of the market, right? So the Purdue and all that stuff, they have the Oxycontin market to a T.
And then they have
the methadone. And now they're on the back end selling opioid constipation medication.
No, that's fucked up too, because we got a bad problem in our country when they're running commercials for the fucking shit. When they're at commercials of, are you constipated from opioids? It's called like Motive, or what's it called? It's called
I just know that they like literally have it on both ends. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, but that's fucked up. They're running commercials for it, meaning like they're not running commercials for the Oxycottin, but they're running commercials for the side effect of being constipated.
Exactly. It's like mind-blowing. It really is.
Creech, did you talk about skateboarding to them and stuff like that?
Yeah. Right now, actually, the next one that we've got, Cameron Schaefer asked, what was the worst situation you got yourself into as a drug addict?
The worst situation I got myself into, I honestly have to say, was the end results of my drinking and drugging. Like, I lived in a self-induced prison, meaning that I created this prison, and the only way out of that jail cell was $10 more or a bag of heroin. So I had given away my fiance, I had given away my career, I'd given away my family, my friends, anything that mattered to me, I gave it away. People say I lost this, I lost that. I didn't lose a motherfucking thing. I know exactly where it went, and I can take you to the street corner to the guys that still own half the shit. You know what I mean? Like when I use, I lose that privilege to have choices and options of what I will or will not do to get one more. So like, my mother fits into a needle, my fiance fits into a needle, my sexuality fit into a needle. Like I'm the kind of guy that'll do whatever it takes to get one more. So that was and knowing that I created it, I couldn't blame it on anybody else any longer. That was like the craziest thing for me.
As you mentioned earlier, it also led to you being homeless quite a few times, sleeping in parking garages in Baltimore. Going back to Dreamseller, it's just another stark reality that you don't really realize until you read it. Just how scary that could be. I mean, I've only driven through Baltimore. I can't imagine actually like having to live on the streets, and some of the seedier areas.
Yeah, dude. And you picked a fucked up place to be homeless in. God damn it.
You're telling me, man. It was a tough stop. And I'll tell you what, like so my next book comes out March 27th, and my publishers sent me some copies of it, and there's the new ending to it. And I haven't read my first book since I've been sober, which is 2 years. I haven't picked it up once in 2 years. And then prior to that, the book has been out for 6 years. I read it maybe once or twice, and I was still getting high, so I didn't really pay much mind to it. So the other night, it's around 1:30 in the morning, and I said, you know what, I have all these interviews to do. Let me read this new ending. So I picked this book. I'm reading the ending, and it really put me in a very vulnerable, fucked up state of mind, almost to where like I wanted somebody to hug me and tell me it was going to be all right, because it brought up a lot of memories that I buried or did a lot to avoid, and of how I hurt my family, how me and my father were just hell, and I'm sitting on my bed. It's 1:30 in the morning. Normally I'm asleep at this time. I got sober, and I get like real old all of a sudden. I'm tired at like 10 p.m. and shit. And for some reason I'm awake, and I read this ending, and I'm just messed up mentally, and all of a sudden my phone goes off. Oddly enough, like you talk about me being homeless, it's this guy who's homeless in Chicago. He's sleeping in the Home Depot parking lot in those makeshift garages that they put out that they're trying to sell. He's turned one of them into his house, and he said, Novak, if you can get clean, please, there's no reason why I can't. Can you help me? And I start doing what I can do to help him. 3 hours later, I have a van picking him up to take him to rehab. And it was at that very moment that I said, now I get it. It all makes sense. Like I went through what I went through to be able to get one of these phone calls at 1:30 in the morning to help this dude that's homeless sleeping in a Home Depot parking lot garage,
Yeah, that's true. I mean, your life experience, at the end of the day, you turn around and you'll see, how what you went through, you see somebody starting to go through or somebody in the midst of going through, and then it clicks like, okay, that's the journey. That's the journey of life, you know what I mean?
Exactly. That's what I was telling Creech, man. I shot dope for 21 years. I'm very good at playing devil's advocate because there's not much that I haven't seen, went through, or heard. So I get both sides of it. You know, when I'm talking to people, I always let them know, like, I've sat where you sit, I've thought how you think, and I've felt how you feel. I know what it's like to have no way out. And I can relate to them. You know, I can shuck and jive with them, and I can kind of make this melodic harmony if we just work together.
Look, I came in late on this whole thing, man, so let me just, because you said 21 years, I don't know how old you are, but, like, so how old were you when you started using heroin?
16.
And prior to that, you know, there's always porthole drugs and porthole, you know, situations that, you know, you don't just walk into some place and go, hey, give me some heroin. So how did you get to that point? When you were 16, what was the quickest sort of elevator pitch of what got you to that?
It was like, you know, being a professional skateboarder and already traveling the world and doing these extreme, if you will, things and ways of life that I really didn't have a lot of rules or regulations. I wasn't the kid that had to be home when the street lights went on or make sure I brushed my teeth before I went to bed because I'm in California filming a video part for Powell-Peralta, or I'm in Atlanta on tour doing demos with Tony Hawk and Bucky Lasik. And so I kind of was left to my own devices. And after all, I was a successful individual, so no one was really, like, keeping an eye on me because I have already proven that, like, I can do okay by myself. So I started drinking, and then with the drinking came the weed, and then that progression that we hear about, the drinking to the weed, to the cocaine, to the pill, you know, and then before I knew it, I had a problem.
Wow. Yeah, and I think part of that is, like, you know, you were, like you're saying, successful, so you were self-sustaining yourself, and at a young age, you kind of get cocky, you know what I mean? You kind of go, like, I know what I'm doing, I know how to handle myself, you know what I mean? And then
exactly,
next thing you know, it's like, whoa, what the...
I'm successful. I've created this life for myself. You know, I did things that people relate to successful. I did things that people dream of doing. You know, like I was telling Creech, I was the first skateboarder to be endorsed by Gatorade. I flew out to Chicago to the Quaker Oats building that makes Gatorade as well. I'm watching them do all these tests on Michael Jordan with Gatorade. You know, like doing all these things that people equate to success or happiness. So no one was watching out for me, and because, you know, it appeared on the outside that I knew how to navigate my life.
So getting sponsored by Powell, was that your first skate deal, or were you on other things before?
Yeah, no, that was my first thing. You know, like I had went, you know, I skated for local skate shops, and then Bucky Lasik, who's from Baltimore as well. Me and him are both from Baltimore. And Bucky took me under his wing, and he got me sponsored by Powell. But initially, they sponsored me for wheels. And then from the wheel sponsorship, it went to the board sponsorship. And so I stuck with that, you know, and I didn't really jump around to different sponsors. I was sponsored by, like, Airwalk, Vans, Thunder Trucks, Independent Trucks. You know, I changed those sponsors a lot, but the board sponsor I always kept the same.
Right. And they kicked you off because then you got busted or something like that, or like what?
Yeah, what I was on tour with Mike Vallely, and they found out I had a lot of drugs on me. So Mike Vallely came to me and said, Novak, get rid of the drugs or get off the tour. And I finished the demo. I threw the drugs down a sewer. And after the demo, I met some chick, and I had her drive me back to that sewer. I fished the drugs out of the sewer. Long story short, Mike Vallely caught drugs, and he kicked me off the tour. I'm now home, and I'm a full-blown drug addict, and I get a phone call from my team captain and Tony Hawk, and they said, look, Brandon, we have one of two options we can do with you. We can put you into treatment. You can save your life. You can continue to be a professional skateboarder, or you can quit the team. And I didn't have a breath of fresh air in my lungs when I said I quit, you know, because, like, drugs had already consumed me. And I was the last person to realize that was happening.
Yeah, and a phone call is not really going to do much at that point. You know what I mean?
Like, No. I needed, like, emergency room ICU kind of care, not like an outpatient. check.
We're good. Hey, I'm gonna intervene here, man. What are you gonna do? I'm gonna send him a text. I'm gonna send him a text.
We're gonna write him a note on the box, and we'll overnight it. We won't just UPS General Mail it. We're gonna overnight it to him to let him know how important this is.
How did you not know that we fucking cared? We overnighted that fucking shit.
We spent an extra $10 on that.
No, hey, when you were on Powell-Peralta then, and because I guess it was still called Powell-Peralta, then Stacy Peralta was still involved in that company at that point?
Yeah. George Powell and Stacy Peralta were still on the deal. And it was kind of like right when Tony Hawk was leaving because he left and created Birdhouse Skateboards, right. Which then in turn Bucky went to Birdhouse, and then he was trying to get me to go to Birdhouse. But it was right around that time that I just chose to be a full-blown heroin addict as opposed to going to Tony Hawk's team because that made more sense.
So what year was that, by the way? What years were you active in the skating crew?
Oh, man. Dude, I don't know. My life has been a blur for so many years. It's funny. My co-author has to do a timeline of all my events in my career, and I have no idea because my life was consumed by shooting heroin. So like I wasn't really keeping track of the date or the time or the month or the year. And we were doing something the other night, and one of the best ways to find out my timeline is by my arrest records. You know, that kind of and he was talking about something in '99 about me going to treatment, and I'm like, yeah, I do remember going to treatment because it was the snowstorm in '99. And I remember not wanting to go to rehab because usually I went to rehab in the winter, but this particular winter I did not go to rehab because it was 99 and it was about to be that year 2000, which was the Y2K scare where they thought the world was going to end. But in my mind, that was going to be the best hustle ever because I was going to break in and rob and steal from every house known to man. You know what I mean? So like that's how my mind works. Like that's how I remembered where I was at in 99 because I was praying to God that the world ended so I could go in and rob all these places. And it didn't happen, so I went to rehab.
Let me ask you a question, then, because you have a lot of friends. You know what I mean? You had a lot of friends when you were skating, and you're a guy that you're friends with Bam. You have a lot of friends. But when you're strung out to the point, to your lowest point, in your mind, do you feel like you don't have any friends at that point, or is it the opposite, where you feel like because you're on drugs and all this shit that you're like, does your life feel sort of normal that you don't really get how depraved it has gotten?
That's kind of what the cycle of addiction is based on for me, because like when the only times I would have that moment of clarity, which is where I would be alert enough to realize the world that I created for myself, which was homeless, roaming the streets of Baltimore City, selling my body for $40 to get more drugs. The only time I would really see the reality of my situation is when I would wake up not under the influence of heroin. So all of a sudden I wake up and I'm consumed by all these feelings that are so overwhelming, like what my reality really is. So I have one or two ways I can go here. I can deal with this issue head on and address it and better my life, but that's so abnormal that it just makes sense for me to hurry up and do what I have to do to get one more so I can become numb to what I've created, to where it's like okay, if not tolerable, of the position I'm in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally, yeah.
That was kind of my deal. And like I say, man, when I speak, at the end of my run, I was the kind of alcoholic. I go to AA, even though I love narcotics. I go to AA, and I always share that I was the kind of alcoholic that I wanted to kill myself on a daily basis. But the hit is that I didn't want to hurt myself in the process. So I would stay in this weird purgatory state where if you strap me up to a polygraph test, I will pass with flying colors. That tomorrow is going to be different. I am not going to do this tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to get my life together, only to wake up tomorrow and repeat yesterday's actions and be in the same position and, for lack of better words, be stuck in a Groundhog's Day state of affair for the better part of 15 to 20 years.
In that first sort of downfall, what was it then that sort of got you to the point where you took some action or somebody took action for you?
In the beginning, the very first treatment center I went to at 17 years old, which is in my book, I went, it was a little bit after I got that phone call from my team captain, Tony Hawk, that asked me to go to treatment, which I politely inclined. About a month later, I'm living at my mother's house with my girlfriend. I'm a full-blown heroin addict. And they came to me. They said, Brandon, we have a great idea. I said, what's that? They said, we want you to go to treatment. And I thought about it for a second. I said, you know what? That's a fucking phenomenal idea. A, I have the time. And B, I'm going to go to this treatment center, and I'm going to report back to you, to my mom and to my girlfriend, why I'm not those people, nor will I ever be. You just caught me in a bad situation, in a weird way, in a bad day. And I went to this first treatment center at 17, and I was in there, and it was about 10:30 at night, and I'm in this big cafeteria, and I'm making a bowl of chicken-flavored ramen noodle soup. I'm ill as a research monkey. I'm spilling the soup all over me, and this old black man walks up to me out of nowhere, and he says, white boy, what are you doing here? I said, heroin. He said, how old are you? I said, 17. He said, do yourself a favor and don't turn 18 in a place like this. You know what I could tell you? I could tell you where the 4 teeth were placed in that man's mouth because at the time I had all mine. I could tell you that he was 75, homeless, and smoked crack. I was 17, lived at my mom's, and my mind told me I successfully did heroin. Because now, mind you, I'm comparing out. You know what I can't tell you about that place? I can't tell you about my counselor's name. I can't tell you about the relapse prevention packet they're trying to shove down my throat, the healthy or unhealthy boundaries they're trying to instill in me. Because if I could tell you those things, that might mean that I can relate, and I want no part of admitting that, like, maybe I have a problem. So I leave that treatment center, disease untreated, no defense against the first drink or drug, and I turn 19, 20, 22, 23, 25, 26, 27, 28, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35 in a jail or a treatment center. And every year on my birthday, I would sit in my cell or in my bed in a rehab and think about that man who I compared myself out to immediately and said, maybe if I would have listened to him with an open heart and open mind, I would not continuously find myself in these situations, meaning that they were fully self-induced. I created this. I didn't blame it on the drugs. I didn't blame it on the doctor or my father because I watched him cut my mother's throat at 7 or like any of this stuff. I just knew that I created this, and the reason why I can't stay sober is because Brandon attends Brandon's Anonymous, Brandon sponsors Brandon, and Brandon's Brandon's God, and then Brandon wonders why he has a needle in his arm yet again, meaning like I'm my biggest enemy. So once I got out of my way and really believed that my way didn't work, that I didn't know how to live without the use of drink or drugs, then I became teachable. And then, you know, kind of from there, you know, I sit here talking to you with 2 years sober.
Wow. God damn. That's a long fucking stretch, man. Holy shit. And I got to be honest, a lot of people don't live that long. As long as you that's one thing that should keep you going to year 3 and year 4 is that look back at the other years and go, I should be dead. I should fucking be dead.
I say it all
every
the time,
day you wake
man.
up, yeah, you need to go.
I say it all the time. Like, statistically speaking, factual evidence dictates that I should be drunk, high, or dead right now. Those are facts. And the fact that I'm not is nothing shy of miraculous, meaning miracle.
Right.
You know, like it defies logic. It truly does.
Right. And now you need to look at, like, that right there gives you purpose. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's like, that is a defining frame of your purpose. You know, like, it's like, wait a second, I've been given something that is pretty damn rare at this point for the amount of other shit that I did. So, you know, it's like, hopefully that'll be a good drive for you on that thing.
It's crazy, man. Like, I say this sometimes when I'm talking to people, right? So drugs and alcohol were my answer to everything. I love you, I shoot dope. You cheat on me, I shoot dope. You put me in Africa, I shoot dope. It rains, I shoot dope. It's sunny, I shoot dope. That's my answer to everything.
See, that would only be my answer. That would only be my answer if I agree with you on if you put me in Africa. I would choose that. So at least we have a common theme there. The rest of it,
that's our common bond. I got you. I dig it. So that's my answer to everything. For 21 years, it was a foreign concept for me to grasp that in 21 years, my answer to everything became my problem to everything. But take it a step further, my answer, which became my problem, looking at it now, is once again my answer to everything. You know? Like, I don't drink or drug, but, like, the program, the field that I'm in, helping other addicts, alcoholics, like, oddly enough, drugs and alcohol are kind of the answer to everything again for me, depending on how you look at it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Meaning you're not going to escape the world.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and now I'm in this field of, like, where I help addicts, alcoholics for a living. I travel around. I tell my story as a cautionary tale, and I help people get into treatment. So oddly enough, like, drugs and alcohol came back around to be an answer for these problems because now I'm equipped to deal with it.
Let's expound a little bit more on that. Like, so when you're saying that's your field, like, is it an official? How do you get booked to do that? Are you employed by an organization, or is it just some sort of freelance thing that how does all that work?
Yeah. I work for a treatment center. It's called Banyan Treatment Center, and we have 3 facilities, one in Chicago, one in Boston, and one in Pompano Beach, Florida, and we're getting ready to open a 4th location. And my title, I went from, like, you know, walking into rehab, my worldly possessions consisting of 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, and a stick of deodorant. That's all I owned. So 2 years later, I have, like, a business card. I have a title, which is I'm a national business developer, which I don't even know what the fuck means. I have, like, a yearly salary. I have a company credit card. I fly around and I tell my stories to colleges and to rallies and to candlelight vigils, to families who have lost loved ones due to addiction. And I also help people get into treatment centers because of me doing my due diligence for 21 years and being in 13 inpatient treatment centers, and I've lost count of outpatients and detoxes. I'm like the concierge in the treatment center world, meaning I have a lot of ways and means to point people in the right direction.
Exactly. And, you know, you have a little celebrity cachet that goes along with that, so that's good. You know what I mean? That, like, you're using that in a positive manner. You're not using it to, like, bang 2 hookers on the radio or whatever it is, you know. So.
Yeah, right. And that's the deal. Like, you know, a lot of times when people are trying to help somebody that was once in my position, strung out on drugs or alcohol, they already have a bit of a defense up. But then when I come along, you know, they know who I am, that wall is already broken down, which makes it that much easier for me to get through to them to help them.
As you mentioned, with they knowing who you are, you know, not only through Jackass and Viva La Bam and skateboarding. Now, I know the first time I personally saw you was in the CKY videos. I was a teenager during that time, and that was the tape that, like, all the parents didn't want their kids watching. So obviously, I got to see it. And you've been friends with Bam for a long time. So how did your involvement? Did he just one day be like, "Hey, do you want to be on this video I'm shooting?" Like, how did you get on the CKY videos?
The way my transition happened into Pennsylvania, because I'm originally from Baltimore, is me and Bam were both professional skateboarders, but we were best friends because me and Bucky would come up from Baltimore to skate a skate park in Pennsylvania called Cheap Skates, and we would go stay at his mom's house. And Bam wasn't sponsored, and he wanted to get sponsored by Powell, so we were trying to do what we could do to get on Powell. Long story short, he got sponsored, and he skates mini ramp like I skated mini ramp, and we would go to this contest every year, and either he would win or I would win. We were kind of arch enemies, but yet best friends. So one year, he had been practicing all year to beat me, and he shows up at the contest, and Bucky's there, and he's like, "Yo, where's Novak?" And Bucky's like, "He's on heroin." And Bam's like, "What the fuck is that?" You know, he didn't even know. And I kind of got swallowed up by the streets of Baltimore City. And one day I go into a skate shop in Baltimore, and I'm trying to get some money out of them to get high. And when I go in the skate shop, like, "We're not going to give you any money, Novak, but Bam was here doing a demo yesterday, and he left his phone number. And he said, if you want to get clean, you can move up there and get your life back together." So later that night, I called him, And a few days later, he had came down to Baltimore. He picked me up and he brought me back. And that's when he was filming the CKY movies and Haggard. And he said, look, I'll put you in this movie. And he was trying to help me revitalize my skateboarding career. He was trying to help keep me clean and do everything that he humanly possibly could to keep me entertained enough to where I didn't have any idle time, which meant I would go shoot heroin.
That's a good method. You know what I mean, right? Keep you busy.
Yeah.
Keep you in the sight,
He's like a workaholic, So I remember we'd go out in the backyard and he would put the Rocky soundtrack on, and we would skate the mini ramp in like 104 degrees summer heat weather, and like he just really wanted to see me succeed, and that's the thing, like I was telling Creech, he had paid for 4 treatment centers out of pocket to put me in. He never gave up on me. He believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, and I really hold him accountable for kind of where I'm at today and why I'm where I'm at, because if it wasn't for him getting me out of Baltimore, I believe I would have succumbed to being another statistic dying on the streets there.
With that, you did get clean from 03 to 07, right?
Yeah, I wasn't doing no downers, but I was doing loads of coke and drinking loads of wine and Adderall. And I would have little slip-ups here and there, but nothing to where, like, I would, was full-blown using again.
Yeah, because that's the craziest things. I mean, those years were really when you were doing, the stunts and everything on all those shows. So you did most of those technically, other than alcohol, drug-free. So it's really... Is those kind of stunts, like I know you broke your leg before Bam's wedding. Did anything like that, any of those injuries help cause the relapse, would you say?
Yep. I remember that day because I wanted to get high, and I was already dabbling with heroin again, but Bam didn't know. And that day, Tony Hawk was coming into film, and it was a big thing. And I couldn't run back to Baltimore to score. And all of a sudden, Hawk's here, and we have to film, and I'm like withdrawing like crazy. And I hadn't skated for like 2 years, and Bam's like, try this thing. And I knew I couldn't even make it barely if I was skating every day. So he gave me a pair of shoes, and I used someone else's skateboard. And I tried this stunt, knowing that at the very least, if I didn't make it, I would get hurt, which meant I would go to the hospital and get free pain pills. So like I was kind of happy to do it.
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's something really comical about that, unfortunately.
No, you're totally right, pain, man.
Like,
it was great.
Shit, I wanted to get down to Baltimore to score, and Donnie's here, I got to skate, and they gave me shoes and a deck, and they weren't even my shoes in my deck.
No.
Nothing. But what was the stunt? What was that? Because I've never seen any of this stunt shit, on what show did you do the big stunts on? All of them? Like it was like Jackass 3D and Viva La Bam and these things and CKY. Are they all like you just fucking doing like gnarly, like crazy stunt skating kind of stuff?
Yeah, for the most part. Not really skating oriented, but sometimes that entailed that. Viva La Bam was kind of more of a storyline show with a lot of crazy antics. Jackass, as you know, is just fucking ridiculous stunts done by non-professionals.
Right.
And CKY was kind of the same. That was like the beginning of the Jackass thing. So, yeah, pretty much.
Like, give me a couple of, like, the sort of Novak's greatest hits on, like, some of the dumb shit you did like that. Like you put your life in, you risked your life on something. What were just so I visually can get an idea of what the fuck you did.
I remember one thing. Did you see, I don't know if you saw the thing that Creech put together for me coming on the show where I rolled in on that toilet from like a 30-foot roll-in that was oververt?
Got it. I have seen that. Okay, got it.
So like
I didn't
that.
see what Creech did, but I know that stunt. Yeah, I know that one. Yeah.
Yeah, so like that, and then I did that on that same ramp trying to go over this kind of rainbow thing on a skateboard that was like 20 feet up, and I made it to the middle of the rainbow, and I had to bail, and when I bailed, I broke both my ankles at the same time. It goes from that to like being, we had a potato launcher, like a rocket gun, and we loaded it up with like a big black dildo, and I stood on the other side of this park with my pants down, spread wide, and like they shot the dildo in hopes to get it up my ass. That was pretty classic.
Did they get close?
Yeah, very close, very close.
I also remember the human raccoon.
Yeah, dude, that was a fucked up one, man. Because like me and the night before we filmed that, I was shooting pool with one of the filmers for Jackass, Dimitri, and I beat him for like $500 or $1,000, and I kept making fun of him all night about it. So the next day we had to wake up early to go film that, and they rented like a real Hollywood kind of movie raccoon suit for me. And I put the whole suit on. It's out in the woods, and the human raccoon is me standing there with the whole outfit on minus the helmet kind of part, the raccoon face. And Bam punches me in each eye, which gives me 2 black eyes, hence the human raccoon. And little did I know, before I filmed it, they laced the whole inside of the costume with poison ivy. So after that, I had these 2 humongous black eyes and covered in head to toe with poison ivy for like a week.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
With Viva La Bam, as you said, normally you were staying with Bam for the longest time. And with the reality show, obviously, Bam's not like that 24/7. You know, I mean, to some degree, you know, everybody is playing a character, so to speak.
Sure.
What were some of the craziest stuff that went on at the house when the cameras weren't rolling?
It was just kind of, I mean, it's just really nothing like insanely crazy, but just like, you know, parties for days. You know, the cocaine was flowing like a waterfall. The women were running around naked. Just kind of like maybe what you would imagine in a house like that. I don't know, but nothing like
so that,
you know.
Right. So this was Bam trying to get you clean. Come on up and live in my place. And there's
yeah, absolutely. He's like, dude, no heroin, no pills, no downers, but like cocaine's cool. I'm like, fuck yeah.
Cocaine's cool. Drinking's cool. You want to get fat? That's cool.
Yeah. Just no heroin or downers because you sleep for days. And then when I would do heroin or downers, I'd steal like credit cards, steal his cars, steal anything that wasn't bolted down. So at least if I was sniffing coke, I was awake. I was like kind of the life of the party, and I wasn't stealing shit.
Well, here's the thing. I get stealing credit cards. Well, not really. I mean, okay, so you steal a credit card. Have you stolen credit cards before, you said?
Absolutely.
But that's people's credit cards you know. Is that what you're saying? Like take somebody's credit card you know and just, or is it like a stranger's credit card?
I've done both. I'm guilty of both.
So how do you make money off of a credit card, though? Do you know where to go sell that credit card, or you just go buy a bunch of shit like diabetes medical supply crap and be able to sell that shit fast?
One of my main hustles was with strangers' credit cards. I would go to Baltimore and I would go to a gas station, a gas pump, and a gas station that was in a seedy part of Baltimore City that knew pretty much what I was up to. And I would go to the attendant, and I wouldn't even have to go to them. They knew what I was doing. And I would go to the pump, and I would put the card in, and it would say, lift the nozzle, begin pumping. And if you're pulling up to fill your car up, and I'd say, look, how much money are you putting in your gas tank? And you'd say $40. I'd say, look, I'll fill your tank up for $20. You just give me the gas. I mean, you just give me the cash.
Shit.
So, and then I would just keep that pump running, and I would basically form a whole line and just have people pull into me. And as opposed to you paying $40 to fill your tank up, you're giving me $20 and I'm filling it up. So I would do that, and then when I was done, I would go give the attendant at the gas station, $100, $200. So that was a good one. Or I would go buy cartons of cigarettes from somewhere, wherever, and then take them to those same gas stations and sell them the cartons of cigarettes.
Right. Got you. And then you said how many cars have you stolen? Do you remember stealing actual cars? You're saying?
Nah, there's no definitive number. I couldn't even guess.
Okay, but you've stolen cars.
Cards or cars?
Cars, C-A-R-S, yes, cars.
No, I've never stolen. When I mean stealing cars, like I would just go and take one of Bam's cars.
Right.
Like
Okay,
keys.
got you.
But never like.
I was just. Yeah. I always wonder how people, like, they steal a car. It's like, well, you got to know where to go with a fucking stolen car, otherwise.
No. I was too scared to do that, so I would steal the people's closest to me. I would steal their shit. You know what I mean?
But how did you? Sorry about that. But just really quick, how did you figure out that credit card scam with the gas station? Like, you must have known you could do that, or did you just invent that? Were you just like,
no, because at the time I'm like homeless, living in Baltimore City in abandoned houses, and you just kind of, you know, us people that do that together just kind of talk about how we can make money. You know, it's kind of like the current events news on the streets, and that was one of them. I remember one time Bam was in Philly filming a music video, and I needed a car to go meet my dealer, and I'm at his house, and I run out to the driveway, and his Mercedes S55 is there with the keys in it. So I take it, I go to buy my heroin, and I do my heroin, and as I'm driving back through Westchester, right next to Westchester University, I'm bending over to the passenger floor to grab another CD, and when I do that, I start to fall asleep, and as I'm leaning over, the wheel follows me, and I ram right into another parked car, and lo and behold, it was the dean of Westchester's car, which was even of Westchester University, and it was he even had a more expensive car. So I like parked the car and I ran, and Bam gets a phone call during this music video, and he's like, they said, why did you hit the dean of Westchester University's car and run? He's like, dude, I'm in Philadelphia filming a music video. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So, you know, just a lot of things like that.
Yeah, that's some good shit, man. I mean, you know, it's entertaining. It's entertaining.
Yeah, exactly.
I heard that the you know, some of Bam's cars helped get you some fast company back in those days as well.
Absolutely, kind of like Dave said, like you know, we had a radio show on Sirius Satellite Radio, which we did from Bam's house, and I remember one of the episodes. It's uncensored, so we could do or say anything we wanted. They mic'd me up, and I took one of his cars into Philadelphia. It was around Christmas time, and I was on the market for 2 prostitutes, and so I'm mic'd up, and they're recording this whole thing, and it's going live over Sirius. And all day the higher ups at Sirius heard we were going to do this, so lawyers are calling, everyone's calling, and they're like, "Do not do this. You can't do this," which to us meant do it. You have to do it. So my goal is to go pick up these 2 prostitutes in Philadelphia, bring them back to the studio, and fuck them live on air. So I go into Philly, I negotiate a deal, I get 2 women in the car, and I bring them back to Bam's into the radio room, and the deal starts going down, and we're right to the point where I'm about to like get action from both of these chicks while live on air, and all of a sudden they pull the plug on our live show. So we were the first uncensored radio show on Sirius Satellite to be censored, which is kind of monumental.
I know, especially considering Howard Stern's on there too. Yeah.
If I paid for Sirius Satellite Radio, I'd be pissed. I'd be like, wait, I'm paying a subscription here to listen to the fucking non-censored radio. You know what I mean? And now you're censoring. You know, I want at least 53 cents back now for my monthly payment. You know.
Absolutely. I mean, that was our theory as well. You know.
Well, let me ask you a question on that. Did you fuck the hookers anyway then? I mean, even though...
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. That wasn't going to go down in vain. That was a no-brainer.
Like, did you know you were off the air, or did you like you like fuck these hookers, and then you were like, what do you mean it wasn't on the air?
No, because the guy working the boards, you know, right in the middle of it, all of a sudden they just cut to music playing, so we knew that they pulled it. But you know, the cocaine was flowing, the women were naked, so like, how could I not fuck them?
Right. That's great, man. That is funny. Let's go back to one thing though. What's going on with is it going to be made into a movie or not, the first book?
You know, it's funny, it got optioned off and the rights were bought to make it into a movie, and we saw 2 scripts that we really liked, and then all of a sudden they insisted on having these Hollywood writers write this script. We already started to not like it, and then what made us really cancel the deal was when they said, okay, we're going to film it out in L.A., and we're like, you can't recreate Baltimore City in L.A. It's impossible. So we're like, fuck that. And so we pulled out.
Got it. And so the scripts that you liked, though, can you get those, or do the people that were going to make it own all that crap now?
I think they did for 10 years, and I think it's almost up at this point. Right. But it's but like I have a documentary coming out that's going to go to the Sundance and the Cannes Film Festival. It's called Where's My Needle? They had been following me around for 7 years, right? When they first came to me, they wanted to do a documentary about my life, and all I heard was cash on hand for each interview. So I'm like, fuck yeah, I signed the rights over. Each time I do an interview, that's cash, which equals heroin, so let's do this. So lo and behold, they followed me around the camera crew. They've had the highest of highs and literally the lowest of lows. But the common theme throughout the movie was Novak has this potential, but Novak could do this, but. And so then what I found out when I went to rehab is the producers had a secret meeting of how this movie was going to end in my death, because people were kind of assuming that was going to happen. So now that I've gotten clean, it's ending in a way that people, including myself, never thought that it would end. So John Waters has a part in it because he's from Baltimore. He has a part of it. And that's being edited as we speak, and that'll be going to the Sundance and the Cannes and all that shit.
Is John Waters' part the part where you were selling your body for sex? Was he the guy paying? I don't
not,
look. Don't give it away. Don't give the spoiler alert away. But I'm just thinking,
He very well might be.
He might have been. You don't know. You never know, actually, right?
Absolutely. Especially after all this crazy shit we're talking about, you really don't know.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. So they're hoping to have that done for this upcoming year's Sundance, which would actually be a year from now, a little over.
Exactly. Yeah, because you think about it, it's 8 years worth of footage, and now they're getting the new endings and stuff because no one saw me getting sober, so they're just cutting and editing so much, hundreds and hundreds of hours worth of footage.
Who are you doing the graphic novel with?
We are putting it out ourselves. Because for the main fact of we don't want lawyers or suit and ties blocking our artistic creativity. And with the book, we're just tired of people saying, no, we can't do this, we can't do that. So, we're fully doing it ourselves, which is I'm really excited about. Because in reality, I always wanted to write a book and have it published. I did that, so that's great for street cred. So now I'm just so tired of dealing with lawyers and publishing companies and shit that and I've got what I wanted. I'm a published author. So now I just take matters into my own hands. And the cool thing is that the demand is there because the book it was a New York Times seller. It did great. So we don't need them anymore.
Right. But when you say graphic novel, when you say we, is there a graphic novel artist that's involved with you already?
Yeah. We have a guy from Germany, absolutely phenomenal. My co-author, Joe Franz, he works with him, and we have this whole thing set up. Creech, I believe Franz said he might have been in contact with you. I'm going to give him your number, so maybe when this airs, he can send you guys over a link to check out what we're going to be announcing very soon, because we haven't.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
We've talked about it, but we haven't shown anybody what we're doing, and they're in the process of editing the way that we're going to release this to let people know this is going down.
Yeah, that'll be cool. I think it's got a lot of potential, and I do think once you get that graphic novel going, the graphic novel series actually, honestly, I see this bigger than it's a movie. I see this as a TV show, a series, man. It's just like a Breaking Bad type of thing, but your story. You know what I mean? Just like this fucking gritty ass TV show could be really cool, because that's where it's at nowadays anyway. Movies are sort of dead. You know what I mean? In a weird way.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, I'm strung out. I just watched the whole Shameless series, you know, the Breaking Bad. I just want to sit down and get strung out and binge on one thing, you know, and then I do that, and then it's on to the next. I'm not really a movie guy too much. Although I did just watch that Edward Snowden movie last night.
Is it on like a Netflix or something like that? Or
I don't know. My roommate rented it off of something. You know, that guy that kind of let out the information that all the phone calls were being monitored by the NSA.
Yeah, no, I don't know him. What the fuck, Brandon? You're not supposed to mention that. I don't know him. I don't know.
I'm sorry. You're right. I'm going to get high.
Hey, I'm not on this phone call. I'm not on this phone call.
Your son's playing video games, and somehow he got you on this phone. It's not your fault.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I was in the first Can't Kill Yourself video.
Really?
Yeah. See, Bam was like 14, and he was staying at my place in L.A. For I think it was called like Action Now Sports Convention or something like that in Long Beach. You know, like they have those like skateboard convention things. It was in Long Beach. It was like
like trade shows.
Yeah, he came out and he stayed at my house because my buddy who sponsored him was like one of his first sponsors. It was a wheel company called Land Speed Wheels.
Yeah, I remember them.
Yeah, and that was the guy I went to high school with. So he's like, oh, this kid that I'm sponsoring, he's coming out. He's going to Long Beach to, you know, do our trade show to sell our wheels. And then, so he was staying with me, and then he was shooting these videos, and he's like, I had this, like, I don't remember what it was, a Mustang convertible, and he's like, it was a piece of shit, right? So he's like, oh, let's run it into these trash cans. Well, first of all, he was shocked that L.A. had these giant trash cans, because we had these big, we had big trash cans in L.A. Now everyone has them, but this was like 96 maybe, I'm thinking. Anyway, that was it, and so that's the one that was like, it was Land Speed, which I think was part of like Foundation Skateboards. The wheels were actually all part of that Tumieto Foundation Skateboard Company.
Yeah.
Where they,
totally.
They had Pig Wheels and some other fucking different wheel companies and stuff. So, and it came out, so that was it. And so I never saw the other CKYs, but didn't they morph more into like about the band and stuff like that?
Yeah, they did. It was because it started out originally as a band, which was Bam's brother Jesse, which was the drummer, Chad is the bassist, and the band was called CKY, Camp Kill Yourself, and from that came the CKY videos, which was like skateboarding, stunts, ridiculous shit that we were shopping carts, all that. So it kind of all morphed from the band.
Got it. That's cool, man.
Yeah, man. So everything.
You ever skated? You ever skated like that? There's a skate place in L.A. No, in Philly. It's called like Alter Street. Do you ever skate there at all?
Nah, it doesn't ring a bell. I've skated like FDR under 95.
Yeah.
And then there's
FDR is like underneath the highway, right?
Yeah, that, and then there was Love Park, which they just tore down. That was a big spot, and now there's a spot called Paynes Park, which is one of Tony Hawk builds a lot of skate parks in different cities, and that's a big one in Philly right now as well.
Oh, those are like professional parks, huh?
Yeah. The only like man-made one is the FDR, which is like the not man-made, but like the true like skater made. Very good wordplay.
Yeah, it's got that vertical on the that one place where it's like the pillar that goes up to the actual, like it's built into the actual like highway thing, and it's got a tight transition. It goes super vertical, so.
Yeah, it's gnarly, man. It's an extreme park, if you will.
So where are you living now then?
I live in Philadelphia. I live right near the art museum, like where Rocky ran those stairs in the movie Rocky.
Right.
I live right in that area, But I'm constantly traveling. Like I was telling Creech, tomorrow morning I'm flying a girl down to Florida to the treatment center that I work with. She's a 24-year-old girl strung out on smack, so I'll be flying her to treatment.
Oh, interesting.
And if anybody out there is struggling, and looking for a way up and out of their position, like I said, I'm kind of the concierge in the treatment center world. I'd like to give my number out for people to personally contact me, because this is what I love to do the most, and I can help you get you out of your position if you find yourself in a hopeless state of being. And if you ever find yourself in that position, you can reach me personally at 610-635-9092.
Now, does that number spell anything cool? Have you figured out a cooler way to say that? Strung out or something like that, or you got nothing on that number?
What? Say again?
You know how you can look at the number with the letters and figure out what your number? Oh man, I played a thing and it's called the dope. You can call.
It's funny you say that.
The dope.
It's funny you say that. No, it's just a fucking normal, average, ordinary number. But growing up with Bam my whole life, my childhood home where I lived at, and he used to come visit and stay with me, my phone number was 668-3825, right? So I don't think anything of it. And then when he comes and rescues me out of Baltimore City 10 years later, and I move up there, I'm living with him, and I realize his gate code to his house is 3825. His ATM card numbers are every code is 3825. And I'm like, why is all your codes the last 4 digits of my childhood home phone number? And he's like, 'cause that spells fuck. And I thought that was hilarious.
And you didn't even know it.
I had no clue. I'm like, why the fuck, A, do you remember this? And why is it the code to everything? Because it spells fuck, you idiot.
But you thought it had something to do with you. You're like, God, he's really crazy. What the fuck? He's a stalker. I didn't know he was a fucking stalker.
Is this guy trying to get in my pants, or is he just obsessed with me? He's like, no, you idiot. It spells fuck, and it's hilarious. I'm like, all right, fair enough.
I would say that if you are people listening out there, if you're in a situation and you feel like it's hopeless, Brandon said, and obviously reach out and call him and stuff. But I feel like you're torturing yourself doubly if you're actually listening to our fucking podcast and you're in some sort of crack house. That would be the worst. It's oh yeah, the only place I can get my fix is over at this crack house, and they're constantly playing Dave and Creech on there. But I got to get my fix, man. I got to get my fix.
I always say that, man, when I'm speaking. I always say, it's really hard to shoot a bag of heroin when it's cut with NA. And it's hard to drink a glass of wine when it's cut with AA. It just doesn't sit right.
Yeah, no, I'm worried we're going to lose half our audience now if we get them all sober. Come on, we'll give it out. We'll give the number out again one more time. But let's, that's our demographic, bro. We get,
I'm telling you, man. You'll be surprised, man. I'm telling you, man. I've seen it work wonders in my life. It's the same thing that was killing me now, produces me to have a very beautiful lifestyle that I did not see in the foreseen future.
And by the way, here's the thing about addiction, and you know this. You've been to enough. You're kind of an expert on it, and you work in the field now. This is just I've never gone to any of these things, but I'm an addict. We're all fucking addicts. We all breathe fucking air, and we got to have our food. So it's built into our systems to be addictive in a weird way. You know what I mean? It's part of our survival in a sense, but then some people have too much of it in their brain, and then when you get the drugs, and obviously there's things that you can do to control it, but the fact of the matter is, as a living organism, there's an addictive nature that is already automatically built in for our own survival in a sense. So it's just it sucks that there's things that cling in, and there's a substitution. Do you find that, and I don't know if you went through this, I know a lot of addicts do this because it seems to work, but you can't. It's hard just to quit something without substituting it for something else.
Absolutely. And like my substitutions have been like, I join the gym. I go jog on a treadmill every morning. I do 2 miles. I'm the kind of guy, like, I like that whole heroin chic look minus the heroin. So I like that skinny look. I don't go to the gym to get big muscles and shit. So I just go run 2 miles on the treadmill every morning. I write. I do yoga. You know, I skate when I can. And now I just kind of, I use, which was once a negative, being a strung out drug addict, in a positive form and fashion to, like, help people, you know, and that's kind of my fix. It's my Jones. It's like my new high.
Absolutely, yeah, and you made a good point there. It's like when you do pick those substitution things, they got to be healthy. They got to be healthy substitutions. You can't say, oh, I'm going to quit smoking cigarettes and I'm going to vape. I'm going to quit drinking alcohol because I'm just doing bong rips now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's
yeah. It doesn't
like
work.
Jogging, like you said, both yoga and jogging release all sorts of natural chemicals, natural endorphins into your body, so you feel it's a natural way to feel good too. You know, so
it really touches into those endorphins and the receptors that before were only pleasured by, you know, a stimulant, a narcotic, and now, like, I get this new high that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah, but the fact that you like to stay heroin chic, and everyone thinks you're still, like, come on, man, you're using again. You're fitting into those skinny jeans. Come on, man. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Fashion over function.
Like that band, Heroin Chic. They were a good band.
Yeah. I was with the other day. You know that band Strung Out, that punk band?
Are they out of Atlanta?
No, L.A.
L.A. Okay. You were hanging out with them?
Yeah, but it's funny. The band's Strung Out, and oddly enough, I find myself backstage after a show, sitting there, and 2 of the 4 members are sober for years, and we're backstage after a punk show at the Electric Factory in Philly, once again talking about, like, sobriety and shit. Things that, it wasn't supposed to play out that way. You know what I mean? I find myself more, like, finding common interest as opposed to people being like, whoa, you don't drink? That's weird. To people being like, yeah, me neither. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I think once you're open about it, you'll find out that there's, you know, a whole bunch of people that have different levels of it, that's for sure. I don't think anyone has the same story as yours. Like, oh, yeah, I'm sober now, too. Yeah, it's just a hard time. You know, I wrecked my car, and I got in a fight with my mom, and I felt bad, and I was just behind on bills, so I decided to get sober. Well, I was homeless for years in Baltimore City, stuck in
yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, same thing.
Potato.
I done a show. Go ahead. What's it?
Oh, I was saying, you know, because we've been talking also about Brandon helping everybody, and I did want to share. I think you've already seen this, Brandon, but one of the things that I actually on our Facebook and our Twitter DMs and everything, when we asked for questions, there's a lot of people that were just saying, one, that they were obviously thinking you're doing a great job, and they were very supportive of you doing this, but there was people that also said that, you know, they'd like to pass along their thanks for your help. And one of them was at BuyTour4 off Twitter that wanted to like I just said, thank you for your help, and let you know that he thinks you've done a wonderful job.
That's what's wild, man. Like, if you would look on my Instagram or whatever post I would post, 8 out of 10 comments would be like, you strung out junkie, when are you going to die? Die already. Why the fuck do people keep giving you chances, right? And now, literally, when I post something, out of 100 comments, there might be 1 negative comment. Like, it literally has went from night to day. Oddly enough, my numbers in my social media and fan base are rising as I stay sober, where, you know, some people are like, oh, fuck, this is where it gets boring or not that entertaining anymore. To now
I got like you. So you're saying when you were posting and you weren't clean, you would get a lot of negative stuff, and then now you're doing on the social media, you're letting it know, and hey, I'm sober, and you're sort of promoting that part of your life, and it's getting positive feedback, and your numbers are growing, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I was just out in L.A. for that guy Pat O'Brien, who's a TV guy. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he wrote some books.
I'm Pat O'Brien.
So I went out there and I did some red carpet thing for his. He got the Experience, Strength, and Hope Award. And while I'm out there, the producers from Vice, that network Viceland, they came up to me and they're like, Novak, we want to do a show on you about your life. And I'm like, fuck yeah, you know, and like about my recovery and the trials and tribulations I went through. Like, people are becoming much more interested in this thing because, you know, drug addiction, the opioid epidemic, it's not an epidemic, it's a pandemic, and people are dying in fucking drones. So, like, people are very curious about this, and now you're starting to finally, for once, see some success stories as opposed to opening up the tabloids and seeing another junkie died. You know, now, like, people are on the front lines getting in front of the camera saying, yeah, like, I'm clean and sober. Like, I did this thing. You know, if that's really cool.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's, like, some town in Ohio where there's only, like, you know, 5,000 people in this town, and, like, 3,000 of them are strung out. You know what I mean? Like, it's, like, so bad that it's, like, taking over the whole town.
Yeah, it's insane. I actually was talking to a guy from Ohio today who, on the 25th of this month, they're having this rally at the stadium, whatever the main stadium is in Ohio, and they're asking me to come in to be the guest speaker to, you know, they have already a guaranteed 2,000 people that will be attending. You know, it's like people are really fucking interested and want to become part of the solution as opposed to the problem to fix this thing.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So where do you want to be in 10 years, man?
Dude, you know what I've learned? I remember when I started, I went to my therapist now, and I have this private therapist I see once every month. I see her twice a month, once every 2 weeks. And she said, all right, Brandon, I want you to make a list of where you want to be within a year. And I said, nah, I'm not going to do that. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, because if I make a list of where I want to be, I tend to put caps on my dreams or underestimate or undervalue where I can be. Because if I would have made a list of where I wanted to be 2 years sober, right when I walked into that recovery house or that rehab, I would have undersold myself dramatically. So what I've learned in my path, my process is that, like, as long as I stay clean and sober, anything is possible. Anything.
I love that, man. That's profound. That's awesome. That's great advice for me and hopefully my listeners too, because that's true. I set, you know, you set goals and you could be underestimating what you can do. So just, you know, just every day, just try to be the best you can be, and it's going to take you much farther than you ever imagined.
Yeah, it's wild, and I learned that, you know, just from the treatment center. So I'm like, nah, I don't do that, man. Because like I told you, if I would have said where I wanted to be at 2 years, I couldn't even have drawn this out. I couldn't even have wrote you a diagram or a script to this. Because I never thought in a million years like I'd be where I'm at now. Ever, ever, ever.
What do you think of Philly compared to Baltimore?
I love it, man. I love it. It's because here I've recreated a life. You know, I've made friends without the use of drink or a drug. I've made friends that don't solely include drinking or drugging. So, like, I've kind of recreated myself here. I love it. You know, it's a great city.
So you don't go out to bars and stuff, right? Or do you?
Nah, I mean, you know, I hang out with a chick that's not in the program. So, like, we go out to dinner and she drinks her wine or whatever. She's, you know, old-fashioned. And I don't hang out in bars because, like, after people start getting drunk, I get really bored and agitated because, like, the conversations don't make sense and they don't remember shit that we're talking about. So, you know, it's just not interesting or fun to me. I don't not go, but I just don't have any fun going. Right.
But you get out to see bands, you said, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's some other ones you've seen lately?
What I see, I saw The Sounds recently, the band The Sounds.
Yeah.
I saw that band Strung Out. I saw Iggy Pop recently here in Philly. That was a good show.
Did you get to meet him? Have you ever met Iggy Pop then?
Yeah, I met him. He's a good guy. He was on one of the shows we filmed for Bam's Unholy Union when he got married. Iggy Pop and the Stooges played his wedding, Bam's wedding, and it was the first time that the Stooges and Iggy were back together after like 30 years. They played his wedding. It was fucking insane.
That's crazy. Now, what's his deal? Is he still using, or what do you think his deal is?
I don't know. I at the time when I met him, I was all strung out, so I didn't pay any mind to what his deal was. Super nice guy.
I didn't know if there was some sort of like gaydar with strung out people. You know what I mean? Like because you certainly seem to, when you are on the stuff, you kind of maneuver in that world, I guess, and you naturally find other people that can codependent you, right?
Yeah. I mean, but it's not like we sat in a room and hung out for 8 hours. So, like, I saw him, we were filming, and we talked for 10, 20, 30-minute intervals. But I just couldn't tell. It was such a busy atmosphere that I really couldn't get a read. And I'd never met the man before, so I don't really know what his patterns are. I mean, so I don't know.
I don't know what his patterns are. What is that, like druggy talk or something?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. If I hang around with you and I see what you do, I can tell if your characteristics are out of order, or if you lead strange hours in the day and night. Yeah, I can kind of pick up on it.
Man. You'll pick up on me then. I'm a chronic masturbator, so I step out every 20 minutes.
I wish I could come that much, man. I'm like a one-day come kind of guy, once a day.
Hey, Brandon, I didn't say I come.
Oh, jeez.
We don't have to put this on, especially since we're talking about the end. But man, you piqued my interest when you said I sold my body, and then when Creech sent me the email like, we're gonna have Brandon Novak on, and he said nothing's off limit, and so I'm gonna hold you to that here. And we don't have. You could say, hey, don't put this on the air, but
no.
What the fuck? All right, what? You're in Baltimore, and you're fucking. You're strung out. You're homeless. You're high all the time, or trying to get high all the time. Mm-hmm. What did you mean by that when you said I sold my body?
Well, one day, man, I had woke up at 7 in the morning. I was, like I said, ill as a research monkey, and I went and I stole this furniture, this handmade iron cast furniture, and the price tags on it with the table and the oddity piece that would sit on top of the table equaled $350. So I'm lugging these two pieces of wrought iron furniture around Baltimore City all day, and I'm trying to sell them. And I call my fences. My fences are people that buy stolen goods. And I'm trying to sell this shit, and no one will buy it. So all of a sudden, around 10:30 at night, I'm walking on the street, and I hear a horn beep, and it's this guy. And he said, hey, what are you doing with that furniture? And I said, it's for sale. And he said, well, I got $40, but I don't want the furniture. And I knew exactly what he meant by that. And I'm like, fuck, all right, man, let's do this. And then he went, and he wanted to blow me for the $40. I'm not gay. I don't have a problem with homosexuals. That's not my thing. But I needed heroin, man, and I'm willing to do what it takes at this point. So he drives down to this waterfront, and he starts blowing me, and I'm like, fuck, am I even going to be able to, come? How the fuck? And I need to do this quick because, the heroin dealers, they don't serve all night. So I only have, maybe an hour at best to hurry up and get this done. So I just closed my eyes and, thought of everything else but the initial act that was going on. And somehow I was able to come. And then once I did that, he gave me the $40, and I fucking jumped out of the car, and I ran up. This is in my book, and I ran up to where I buy heroin. So I just completed an act that I swore I would never do, and I get up to where they sell the heroin, and the dealers have gone in, and it's all these shady, burn boys that sell fake shit, and I'm sick, so I'm trying to hurry up and get something, and I'm not really being too cautious, and I end up getting ripped off for the money.
God damn. So what'd you end up buying? Nothing? Just dirt, you're saying?
No, I planned on buying 3 dime bags of heroin, 1 nickel of cocaine, and a pack of cigarettes. So I buy the heroin at first. I buy 3 pills of heroin, and then I'm in this little corner store buying the cigarettes, and I'm in line, and I'm waiting to get the cigarettes, and I'm like, fuck, I got to taste this just to see make sure it's real. And I tasted the first one. It was fucking fake. And I didn't want to believe what just happened, so then I tasted the next one praying that it's real, fake. And I bought drywall, basically. So then I got out of line. I didn't buy then I bought the cigarettes, and I have a pack of cigarettes. I have $5 left, so I went and I bought a $3 pill of heroin from people that I knew was legit. So it didn't even fucking get me high. And that was like my last day using, and the next day I would go into rehab. That's how my book starts out, the last day using.
I think the juxtaposition comedy there is that there's some 53-year-old woman sitting on wrought iron furniture right now that is somehow connected to the fucking, midnight cowboy blowjob and the fucking drywall heroin. You know what I mean? She doesn't even know it. She's like feeding her cat and reading her horoscope on like the raw. I like the guy that like, oh man, I'm trying to sell this furniture, and everyone's like, that's really beautiful furniture, but I don't want that fucking shit. It's like you picked the heaviest thing to fucking steal. You picked the fucking heaviest thing to steal.
I know. I'm fucking lugging it around Baltimore City on my back because I don't have a car. I'm walking everywhere. I got this big ass wrought iron fucking worthless shit that I stole. It was horrible.
Oh my God. Yeah. And you did come, by the way, because the guy was one of the best blowjobs, not that you ever had, but he gives a really good blowjob.
Yeah. So if times get tough again, I will go back and find that man.
Yeah, he's an artist in his own right. I mean,
absolutely.
That's kind of messed up. I never thought there'd be a guy driving around going, "Let me blow you." That's
how it works. It's weird. There's like a whole market for that shit.
Yeah, no. Creech, remember, did I have that conversation when I went on Craigslist and I wanted to check out the different, I was on there looking for computer parts, but they have that section where, there's like the personals and stuff, and the women looking for dates on Craigslist is really pathetic, and it's so like it made me cry. It was just these fat cat women that they just want a long-term relationship, right? And then I'll go, I wonder what the guys are looking for. And all it was like, I will meet you in McDonald's right now and blow you. Like, I will kiss on you. And I was like,
that's great.
Like, it's such opposites. Like, the Craigslist women are just, like, so earnest, and they just want a partner for life. And they don't, but anyone advertising on Craigslist on a personal, like, level like that is so cheap because they literally don't want to go on a site where they can pay. You know what I mean? So.
They'll take it any way possible.
That's right. What are the books called again that people can get? The one book, it's still available. Dreamseller.
Yeah, the re-release of the next book that's coming out is Dreamseller. It's the re-release of the first book with a new cover, 2 bonus chapters, and a new ending. And that it comes out March 27th. That you can pre-order on Amazon now.
Awesome. So it's a real. And is it the same publisher or like?
Yeah, Kensington Citadel Press out of New York. So.
And then once again, where people can call to get help.
Yeah, you can reach me personally at 610-635-9092. And
is there a website for the place that you work that they can just
it's called Banyan, BANYAN Treatment Center.
Yeah, because you might want to go there too, because the thing is, there might be people that don't feel encouraged enough to call you personally. You know what I'm saying? Like that might be too much for someone. So
absolutely, yeah. You can go there, and then there's they can direct you to another line that you can call.
Yeah. It's like, why do you think, I mean, there really is, you've been in and out of these things so much, so you've seen so many other people, so many stories. Is most of them they have to hit rock bottom, or do people get kind of woken up halfway there and then figure it out, or even a little bit? Like, what's the common story?
I hear people in meetings that I go to, and it kind of agitates me to look at somebody that just relapsed or went back out and used, and they're like, have you hit your bottom yet? And I believe anybody can hit their bottom when they stop digging. I chose to buy a bulldozer, buy a construction company, rent 1 million workers. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And so it kind of varies.
Yeah, you were digging to China, basically. Right?
Absolutely. And I was getting nowhere really fast.
Well, I wish, man, I wish you the best, and I'm glad I got a chance to talk to you and get to know you. I'd never spoken to you before. I didn't really know anything about you, so this has been a pretty cool interview. Like I said before, everyone is addicted to something. Like, luckily there's quite a few of us that it's not so harmful and a detriment to their life, but it only takes 1 or 2 wrong turns before you find yourself in a predicament where you're over your head. And so, you just have to be aware, and hopefully, you're blessed with having friends and family that are going to take some action too at the same time. So,
absolutely, man. Well, yeah, it's been a pleasure on this end, and I thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to speak out and let people know that there is a way up and out of that position. Hey, thanks for everything, fellas. I appreciate it.
No problem, man.
Easy. See you, Creech. See you, Dave.
So there you have it, folks. A very insightful, very detailed interview with Mr. Brandon Novak. Infamy, Jackass, infamy, BKY, infamy, heroin addict, homeless man, recipient of blowjobs for $40. What a crazy story. But on a serious note, as we end this show, and Brandon threw out the numbers that you could contact and the website. Again, no problem too small, as they like to say, and take care of a problem while it is small before it becomes tall. That's like a little Dr. Seuss thing there. You know what I'm saying? Don't be a hero, and don't think you can take care of things in your life by yourself. There's a reason for the humans on the planet, because we are one and we rely on each other. We are a social being, as they say. Our entire social civilization is evident upon it, that nobody's built a kingdom by themselves, nobody's destroyed an empire by themselves either. So reach out to family, friends, and if that's not enough, then, call the number that Brandon gave us, look at the website, or just look into any facility or treatment center, or just, you can also go to AA website, and there's a very clear listing of where all the meetings are at in your hood. That's a good place to start. You know what I mean? Not a treatment center, but they will get you help too. So I'm Dave Sheridan. We've got Creech. This was the Dave and Creech Show. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And tune in next week. And we'll have a very special guest, Mr. Tom Green, from the Tom Green Show, where he got fingered. And he's on to talk about his new movie, written by a friend of the show, Zach Ward, and James Cullen Bresnick is the director. Is that correct, Creech? It's a breach.
Yes, that is correct.
What is the name of the film that he's going to be on the film?
It's called Bethany.
Bethany. All right. I knew a girl named Bethany. She had huge tits. We called her Breastany. Well, she still has huge tits, so I think we still call her Breastany. All right. Dave and Creech Show, signing off. Thanks for listening.
Shut up and sit down.
Thank you for listening to the Dave and Creech Show. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of Dave and CJ. These views and opinions do not necessarily represent those of Creech Creative Productions or any of its affiliates.